Welcome in, guys. Farzin Vasugian here with you for another episode of the Chiefs Own podcast. Yes, the Chiefs are back from their bye week, and they will be back on the gridiron. It'll be this Sunday as the Chiefs and the 49ers will face off in the Super Bowl 58 and 54 rematch. So that'll take place on Sunday. We will break down that game, and I'm going to tell you the secret sauce the Chiefs need to win that football game. The little secret key that I don't think anybody's talking about. I'll tell you what that is when we do our game breakdown later on in the podcast. Also, some things to go over on this podcast. Clark Hunt had a surprise press conference today. I don't know if a lot of people were expecting that. It wasn't planned, at least from the public's knowledge, the media's knowledge, but Clark Hunt did appear in person over at the Chiefs practice facility and met with the media, talked about Tom Brady becoming an owner of the Raiders, Kareem Hunt, the stadium situation, also was asked about Harrison Butker, who had recently been campaigning with Missouri Senator Josh Hawley. He had some interesting thoughts on that, and not just that specifically, but in general, players using their platforms. Also, since we've last done a podcast, we've had a couple of wide receivers on the move. The two teams who played on Monday night, Buffalo and New York, the New York Jets, they received a wide receiver. Buffalo received Amari Cooper, who a lot of people thought would have ended up would have had a chance to get Kansas City to get Amari Cooper. Did not happen. He's going to go to Buffalo, and Devontae Adams, the former Las Vegas Raider, he is on his way to the Jets. So a lot of things to go over here on this episode of the podcast. Every time I think to myself, I actually did the game breakdown late Monday night after Monday Night Football, because that's when all the rankings are official when it comes to total offense, total defense, and all those other stats, because you got to wait for Monday Night Football in case something drastic changes here. But I do all these things, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this should be, we did a Monday podcast. We're not coming off of a game. We're coming off a bye week. This should be, kind of a shorter podcast. Nope. We have Clark Hunt with a lot of things to say. We have these wide receiver trades, the Tom Brady news. So we just get slammed with all of these things. So it's going to be probably a normal length podcast for tonight. But hey, no issues from my end. And I don't think any of you guys have an issue with that as well. I'm always excited to talk Chiefs with you guys, even if it's maybe longer than usual. I see you guys coming into the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Appreciate you guys. Please comment along, chat it out with me, and we'll go back and forth with some comments as the show goes on here. A lot of things to get into, so very little time to waste. Where do we start? Let's start with Clark Hunt. Let's start with Clark Hunt's press conference, because as soon as so if you watch the live stream version on the Chiefs YouTube channel, I believe they do it on Facebook as well. It'll always say stay tuned for more press conferences, and they say it on that graphic for some time, because you had Andy Reid, you had Patrick Mahomes, then you had Juju Smith-Schuster. And then there was like a really weird dead period where they just stayed on that graphic, and I was about to turn off the live stream. I just thought they accidentally left it on like that. No, we just had to wait a bit, and it was Clark Hunt's voice who you suddenly hear, you suddenly see him, and immediately my instant reaction was, okay, we got to hear about the stadium situation, because that whole front has been pretty quiet, really low key the past few months. And obviously wanted to get his reaction to Kareem Hunt coming back to the Chiefs. Let's start with that one right there, because that was first off, Clark Hunt did weigh in before the media asked any questions. He wanted to just basically praise the football team for what they've gone through and what they've overcome with the injuries, and still finding a way to go 5-0. Listen, we talked about this a couple of times already. You look at last year. Last year, you had some quarterbacks go down on the team. I know Deshaun Watson's not playing well, but last year, he kind of was playing well with Cleveland. And Cleveland was still winning games with, I think they had Josh Dobbs for a bit, and then they go get Joe Flacco, and they still continue to win. And he ended up winning Comeback Player of the Year, doing some good things with the Colts right now. Joe Burrow goes down with an injury last year, and the Bengals didn't look bright at first, but then they started to get going with Jake Browning, and they came pretty close to making the playoffs. So we learned last year injuries are not an excuse. This year, unfortunately, we're seeing I can't recall a season where top tier teams have been dealing with so many injuries. You're seeing it right now with the Lions. They just lost Aiden Hutchinson, which is a devastating blow. The Chiefs, I mean, they've just been losing offensive guys left and right at key positions, wide receiver and running back. It's been a really tough year, but you know what? The 49ers have been dealing with this as well. Christian McCaffrey's yet to play. They had Deebo Samuel and George Kittle miss a game this year. You've had a few other teams out there. The Rams without two great wide receivers. Every team is dealing with this right now. We haven't seen so much of it on the defensive side until Aiden Hutchinson, who a lot of people felt like was the front runner to go win the Defensive Player of the Year. But yeah, it's just been a really bad year for injuries to top tier teams. We've seen some seasons where there are just so many injuries across the board. We've seen that before, but never to top tier teams. The Chiefs are 5-0. And listen, let me just say this, because I still see people bring this up. I heard people bring this up even before the season. The fact that the Chiefs, they barely got by in some of their playoff games, barely beat Buffalo because of that missed field goal. I love that narrative, by the way. I always chuckle with that narrative. Do people forget that McCole Hardman fumbled at the 1 yard line in that game? Not that I want to bring that up with any joy by any means. No, not at all. But if McCole Hardman does not fumble, let's just say he scores, the Chiefs are up by 2 possessions. So if anything, the Bills are lucky that they had a chance to tie the game at the end right there. But again, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Then in the AFC title game, the Chiefs, didn't score any points in the second half. And the way they beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl, they had to rally in the second half. And then in these games this season, the toe with Isaiah Likely, the penalty, the pass interference on the Bengals to get the game-winning field goal as time expired, which, by the way, was epic. What other close games? I mean, the Chargers game overcoming a 10-0 deficit. The Chiefs, the Falcons game also very close. Listen, people want to take credit away from Kansas City because they're not blowing out teams. The Chiefs, outside of 2018 and maybe some of 2019, the Chiefs in general do not blow out teams. I still remember in 2020 when they had a lot of close games. I still remember in 2022, the Chiefs had 5 ugly wins. Yeah, there's a category for that now in the NFL. Even last year, I mean, they had some ugly wins. The Chiefs have not been blowing teams out for quite some time. I don't know if people are noticing this. I don't know if people have forgotten, but the Chiefs are back-to-back Super Bowl champions. And in these 2 years where they've won the Super Bowl, when you look at their seasons and how things have gone, 2022, Patrick Mahomes had a great year, but there were a lot of close games that were closer than they should have been. And when you look at last year, a lot of people felt like this Chiefs offense was going to be a liability in the playoffs. They ended up flipping the switch. This is what some people were talking about as the season went on. All the Chiefs have to do is flip the switch once it comes to playoff time. And that's exactly what they did. It still was not pretty, but they played much better in the playoffs than they did in the regular season. So I think a lot of people, there's still a camp of people, and I think this is at the end of the day wishful thinking, because there's no way you can really be in denial this much about the Kansas City Chiefs. Like mention the refs all you want, mention all the close games, the offensive struggles. The Chiefs are finding ways to win. I don't know if people realize this. Go to NFL.com/standings or ESPN.com. And look for the NFL standings there. They don't have a win-loss category for close games. They just don't do that. I don't know if people have noticed that. They just have a category for wins and losses and draws. In the rare event there's a tie. The Chiefs are finding ways to win games. That's all that matters to Andy Reid and company. Now, do they want to try to improve on the issues they have even coming off a win? Yeah, of course. Every team does this coming off a win. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. The next day, after the game, every single team, they put on the film and they're going after players, letting them know what they did wrong and what they need to improve on. So that's always a thing across the board with all 32 teams, win or lose. But at the end of the day, all you've got to do is look at the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was a pretty ugly win for the Chiefs, if we're being honest. But who won the game? Who won the Super Bowl at the end of the day? It was Kansas City who won that game. And I think a lot of people kind of forget about this too. This is a Chiefs team that, they've faced a lot of obstacles. Patrick Mahomes, what is he, like 12-0 in his career when he's down by exactly 10 points? Something along those lines. I don't have that exact stat in front of me, but he's undefeated when he's losing by exactly 10 points at any point in the game, which is just hilarious to me. Like that, there's no way that can be a real stat, but it is. So, as far as the Chiefs go, you still have a small group of people who are doubting the Chiefs. And honestly, at the end of the day, and when I say small group of people, I'm not talking about fans or idiots on the internet. I mean, those are just people who are always doing wishful thinking. I'm talking about people in the media who maybe they lost a bet because of the Chiefs not covering the spread, so they're pretty bitter. That's the thing in the media nowadays. You guys all know that just as well as I do. But when you just look at the situation with the Chiefs, they're winning games, man. They're winning games. Now, are the Chiefs going to lose this year? Absolutely, they're going to lose. They're not going to go undefeated, especially if they had Rice and Hollywood and Pacheco and everyone was healthy, which unfortunately is not the reality. Okay, maybe I'd entertain that because of the way things are looking right now, but that's a topic we can discuss in an alternate universe here. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Chiefs are 5-0. They're coming off a bye week. They're getting ready for a big 12-week stretch. Hopefully they can find a way to get the 1 seed wrapped up on Christmas, because that would be a big break for a lot of these offensive players here. And this is, at the end of the day, you just can't take away anything from a team when they win. Ugly win, pretty win, however you want to put it. A win is a win. And Kansas City has dealt with a lot of issues, specifically on offense, the past year and a half. So if they're going to find a way to win, that's all that matters. Listen, all 3 Super Bowl wins the Chiefs have had in the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid era, they have not been very pretty. Not in the least bit. But you know what? I'd rather they have ugly Super Bowl wins than what we saw in Super Bowl 55, which is a blowout loss in that Super Bowl. You never want to get to the Super Bowl to lose. No one wants to lose, but you certainly don't want a blowout loss like that. Unfortunately, the Chiefs offensive line, they were all banged up, and you had pass catchers dropping passes in the end zone. I mean, what would you rather have, that, or would you rather find ways to overcome adversity and win? You know what's a funny thing to me is, like a lot of you guys, I was like, you know what? I want a stress-free game. And I'm watching that Chiefs Saints Monday Night Football game. Dude, I was bored. I was bored out of my mind late in the fourth quarter. I'm like, this is boring. This isn't even fun. This is not cool. This is not exciting. This is boring. I was already preparing for the podcast at that time. So I'm a hypocrite because, I wanted a stress-free game, and that ended up being a very boring fourth quarter, especially late in the game. It was a nice one for the Chiefs, don't get me wrong, but wasn't the most exciting either. Probably would have been more exciting if they could capitalize in the red zone, and we will get into that later on because I did a reel about that, and that got a lot of reactions with people talking about the Chiefs in the red zone. So we'll get into that very shortly here. But I do want to get into Clark Hunt, because he commended the team for how they started. He was immediately asked about Kareem Hunt. He said that he spoke with Andy Reid and Brett Veach, and he said that he was approached by those two guys, and they basically pitched to Clark Hunt that they felt like Kareem Hunt's put in the work. It's been, enough time. He's matured, and they feel like, and given the situation with the injuries, they feel like, this is now the time to give him a second chance. And he also added that he met with Kareem Hunt, and Kareem expressed a lot of gratitude to Clark Hunt for being given the second chance. And listen, is it possible that Kareem's agency said, hey, look, you got to be really grateful and appreciative to Clark? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think in any event, someone's doing you a big solid, that especially if it's unexpected, I think, there are people around you who would say, hey, look, you got to really thank this person for the opportunity they're giving you. And that's the case with Kareem Hunt. Nothing wrong with that at all. So very cool to hear just Clark Hunt's side of that, because this move does not happen without Clark Hunt's approval. And I was very curious to know what his thoughts were on the Chiefs giving Kareem Hunt a second chance. Yeah, I see a lot of you guys talking about Marquez Valdes-Scantling. We're going to get into that. Let's go in order here with some of these things. Clark Hunt did address some questions, actually a lot of questions regarding the stadium. He did say that, he's looking at options with building a new stadium and a new practice facility, as well as the possibility of renovating Arrowhead Stadium. And just to be clear, when he said building a new stadium and a new practice facility, he mentioned that it's being discussed with both states. And he also added something very interesting. He said that the practice facility and the stadium do not have to be in the same location. Listen, that part does not impact me at all. It really doesn't. But isn't it convenient to just have those two close to each other? I mean, listen, if you're coming out 435, the Arrowhead practice facility is just off 435 right there from that entrance there. And then Arrowhead, just takes about a minute or two to drive there. I still remember a time before the practice facility was built, and I believe it opened first in 2009, if I recall correctly. I still remember a time the Chiefs, their locker room was still at Arrowhead Stadium. The practice facilities, it's always been in the same location as it's been for a very long time. But what the players did, they drove, and sometimes they would carpool from Arrowhead Stadium to the practice facility in their pads, helmets, all that stuff. And then when practice was over and when the media was wanting to interview players, everybody, the media and the players, they would drive from the practice facility to Arrowhead Stadium, which, that certainly was not convenient. Listen, I don't know. Again, this doesn't bother me personally. Like, I don't care. I just, I would think that this would be convenient to have both within the same proximity, but that's up to them. If I'm not mistaken, I think a lot of teams have their practice facility and their stadium in different locations. I believe that's the case with the Raiders, because the Chiefs, they use the Raiders practice facility when preparing for Super Bowl 58. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the right move is there, but I'm very curious to see what ends up happening there. Clark Hunt did say the deadline, not necessarily a deadline, but by springtime, he does want to have a good understanding of what direction the team's going to go in terms of what they want to do. Listen, I feel like by springtime, you should have an answer. I really think you should, because if you're going to build a brand new stadium, that's going to take about 3 to 4 years, depending on the look of the stadium. That has to be done soon. If I'm not mistaken, Allegiant Stadium took 4 years to build. So this has got to get figured out by springtime, I think. Clark Hunt kind of made it sound like, okay, it's going to be like they'll have 3/4 of it all figured out. That's nice. I think it's got to be figured out by springtime, though. He was also asked about Harrison Butker. He spent his part of his bye week campaigning with Missouri Senator Josh Hawley. I think if you follow Clark Hunt's wife, Tavia Hunt, on Instagram, I don't think it's any secret. She has not been hiding from the fact she does lean towards the right. In fact, she was recently pictured with vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance. So I think it's very clear where she and her family lean. Now, Clark Hunt did say that he acknowledges that there are a lot of players on the team that are on both sides of the political aisle, and he tells the team every year in training camp to use their platform on issues that they care about. and that they think is very important to them. Great. I mean, listen, I have no problems with that. Unfortunately, I think you're seeing a lot of fear. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, he was very vocal in trying to create voter registration drives alongside Tyrann Mathieu. Now you're not really seeing Mahomes do much. He even said he's not really going to talk much about it. I think a big part of it is he kind of fears the backlash, which is unfortunate. No one should ever fear backlash on either side. I think there are a lot of people who are on both sides of the aisle, not just within the Chiefs, but across the NFL, and they don't want to speak up because they're nervous about the backlash, which I don't get. I don't understand people who go after athletes on social media and say, I do not follow you for politics. But when you agree with them politically, you're not going to give the same level of criticism, which I do not understand. And I will always call it out. And I don't care if you guys like it or not. If you want to unfollow and dislike the show because of that, no problem. I'll still be doing what I'm doing. I'll still be here, and you're more than welcome to do whatever you want to do. I just don't think it's acceptable. I don't understand the logic. Why can athletes not talk about politics? By that logic, none of us should be talking about politics unless we are in political office. See how hypocritical that sounds? That's like saying none of us can ever talk about movies, whether we're praising or criticizing because we've never acted in a movie or never been in a movie before. See how silly all of that sounds? So I think people really need to let loose and let players do what they want to do. You can rationally disagree with a player. Do I think a player is going to have a conversation with someone on social media? No. But I still think, the comment section is open. People are allowed to say what they want. But I think a lot of guys, at the end of the day, just chill. Like Harrison Butker is allowed to do what he wants to do. I mean, I don't understand the backlash from all of this. And I still go back to the comments and see, like, people, I think, blew that out of proportion. I know he was answering questions about that on Fox News recently. It's like, okay. I mean, who's really who at the end of the day was deeply offended by this? I think, again, people, Patrick Mahomes said this. If you're going to talk publicly about these kinds of things, then you're going to have to accept the fact that there are going to be people who clip things off and might even take things out of context, which may not be fair. But unfortunately, that's what the media does. That's what people on social media do. I mean, they will do it intentionally just to. I even said Harrison Butker in his interview with Fox News. He said something and people cut off his comment immediately. It's like, wait a minute, show the full context. Don't cut someone's comment off. Show the full context. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what anyone's opinion is. Let's hear the full context. Then we either praise or criticize. Those are just my thoughts. He was also asked about Tom Brady being approved as a part owner of the Raiders. This has obviously now led to a broadcasting conflict, which, by the way, Tom Brady is going to be announcing the game alongside Kevin Burkhardt this Sunday. A lot of you guys may not know this. I don't know if you guys know who Tom Hedrick is. Tom Hedrick, a legend in the sports broadcasting business. My mom got me his book in high school, and he actually was at KU whenever I was at KU. So I had him sign it. He was actually a mentor of mine. Really, really nice guy. He actually used to be the voice of the Chiefs and the voice of the Jayhawks many, many years ago. He's retired now. Before he was fully retired, he was teaching part-time at Baker University, which a lot of you guys in the state of Kansas, you guys know where that is. And he was also doing play-by-play for local colleges, for KU baseball, I believe for Baker University as well. So obviously not big-name schools, but, just, a few more jobs for him to make some money. And now he's fully retired, which is good for him. He's a phenomenal sports broadcaster and a phenomenal person. Really, really nice guy. I had a conversation with him kind of about this kind of thing. So for those who don't know, he announced Super Bowls 1, 3, and 4 on CBS Radio. Tom Hedrick, that is. And he told me back then, because there were no smartphones back then, there wasn't any social media, coaches actually handed you the game plan. When you sat down and interviewed coaches, so Kevin Harlan, when he does a game for CBS or for Westwood One, he gets to he receives some allocated time to sit down with some coaches and players and talk about the game plan and talk about the upcoming game. Back then, according to Tom, coaches actually handed you the game plan. They told you what they were going to do. They told you what to expect. Because back then, it wasn't easy to receive a game plan from one person and get it to another person. That kind of game of telephone did not exist. Today, if you receive a game plan, that can easily get leaked in the blink of an eye. So obviously, no coach is ever going to do that. My point in bringing that up is, Tom Brady, being the owner, he's barred from attending opposing teams' practices and being able to meet with coaches and players because that is a major conflict of interest. Listen, even if I think the meeting with coaches and players part, I think that's a little crazy. I think he should still be able to talk to people. I mean, listen, is Andy Reid really going to give Tom Brady, a part owner of a division rival, some big secrets? Hell no. Do you think Andy Reid is giving away big secrets to any of these announcers when they interview him? Absolutely not. I don't think Andy Reid would change his tone of answers if he was asked the same question by an opposing team's owner or by an announcer. So I think this whole thing with Tom Brady and his ownership role with the Raiders, while it's interfering with broadcasting, I think that is really blown out of proportion. I really do. I think some people are making way too big of a deal about it. Now, do I want Tom Brady at Chiefs practices, at other teams' practices? Absolutely not. He's a part owner of the Raiders. He can absolutely run to them and give them some information that they may not know and would love to know. Of course, you want the owner or part owner of another team at your practices. Absolutely not. But I still think he can talk to coaches and players. Because here's the thing that kind of upsets me. And listen, I get it. This is just the way things work. The haves and the have-nots, right? This is how it all goes. Tom Brady is getting paid $45 million a year by Fox to announce games. I mean, this is easily the highest paid sports broadcaster ever of all time. And he's not putting in any of the work. He's not going to practice. So he's not going to know exactly what things are going to look like. His only job is to show up, the intern hands him the microphone, and Tom Brady's just going to talk to Kevin Burkhardt during the game. That's it. That is his job. He doesn't have to do any of the weekly work leading up to the game. I'm sure he's going to do film study and all of that stuff and watch press conferences, but he's never going to be able to conduct his own interviews or do his own thing. I don't know, man. I mean, listen, props to Tom Brady. You're a 7-time Super Bowl champion. You're the GOAT. So you get to kind of skate by. You get to do all this work. Really, you're not doing much work. The big chunk of your job is just showing up on game day and talking. You don't have to put in the work that Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen and Tony Romo and all of the other broadcasters have to put in. And listen, regardless of what your opinion is of any broadcaster, Tom Brady is going to be doing the least amount of work out of any of them. And he's getting paid the most. That should not sit well with anybody. That really shouldn't. But hey, again, he's a 7-time Super Bowl champ. He's high up there in the elite status. So he's Tom Brady. He can do whatever the hell he wants. That's just the way it all works out. I do want to get into the wide receiver trades here and how this could also be a move that impacts Kansas City and what they could do next. First off, Amari Cooper, he was traded to the Buffalo Bills. And then Davante Adams was traded to the Jets for a conditional 3rd-round pick, could turn into a 2nd-round pick. I'm laughing because I still remember in 2022. The Chiefs, let's start with Russell Wilson. He gets traded to the Broncos. Davante Adams gets traded to the Raiders, and that was the domino effect that got Tyreek Hill out of the AFC West. And the Chargers, they added some key pieces on defense. Well, the Chargers have not been able to do anything with those key pieces on defense. Russell Wilson's been traded out of Denver. Davante Adams just got traded out of Vegas. So all those things in 2022 to try to dethrone the Chiefs didn't even work. Not even close to it. The Chiefs went 6-0 in the division that year. Oh, and the Chiefs have won the Super Bowl every year since all of those moves happened. See, this just tells you right now, Kansas City's not a team anyone wants to deal with. And I guess there's some rumors out there that there are a lot of teams not wanting to send a wide receiver to Kansas City. Yeah, rightfully so. No one should want to, considering how great the Chiefs are and how everything's going for them this season. Why would you? The whole Raiders team played like they are all injured. Well, Devontae Adams is allegedly injured. I'm sure that ankle is going to heal very fast now that he's a Jet. Yeah, I think that's interesting. Okay, so I see Kirk's coming here, get MVS. So as Amari Cooper goes to Buffalo has to kind of do something. They have to make room for Amari Cooper. So what's the corresponding move? They waved goodbye to former Chiefs wide receiver Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Do you guys want Marquez Valdes-Scantling back in Kansas City? You know, when I first think of that question, I want to say no. But then I kind of think about it. Okay, you're down with you're down with Rashee Rice. You're down with Hollywood Brown. Isaiah Pacheco's out. Now Kareem Hunt's doing a good job filling in. Juju Smith-Schuster did a good job last week, or the week before rather. But do you trust the Chiefs to do that every single time? I don't know. I think you need help. Is Marquez Valdes-Scantling going to move the needle much? Listen, the Chiefs have 5 wide receivers on their depth chart at the moment. That's less than what they usually carry in recent memory. You know who's number 5 on that list? Sky Moore. And I'm not trying to pick on Sky Moore and say he's the, if you let him go, he's the end of all the problems. No, but I don't know what Sky Moore's purpose is on this football team. I really, really don't. What are some big plays from Sky Moore during his time as a Chief? The corn dog play, which, a lot of people say the play call was more significant than the player, but the player still has to do their part in making that happen. And he sold that play perfectly so he could get the touchdown and just walk it in with all the social distancing happening in there. What else did Sky Moore do? Oh, yeah, the week before that, or the game before that, rather. The punt return against the Bengals late in the game. Okay, that was a punt return, not an offensive play. Last year in week 2 against the Jaguars, he had that nice big catch and run to help put the game away against the Jags. Okay, I mean, that's really it, though. That's really all we've seen from Sky Moore. I would take Marquez Valdes-Scantling over Sky Moore. Hell, I would have actually been more in favor of Kadarius Toney over Sky Moore, but I guess I think the main thing with MVS was his contract. They did not want that to go into his 3rd year because they felt like that was not a very deserving contract considering the type of year he just had. I know he stepped it up in the playoffs with those 2 big catches against Buffalo, and in the Super Bowl had that catch, the first touchdown of the game for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, helping them to get going. But I don't know, man. I'll take MVS over Sky Moore. I know a lot. I'm seeing you guys in the chat. A lot of you guys not really in favor of that. Corey is saying bring up Ross or Remigio. Yeah, listen, I don't know, man. Just the Justin Ross thing. I mean, is that at this point is Justin Ross just a name? I mean, I'm not saying he's terrible or anything, but how is it that Justin Ross is not on a team by now with all the hype he's received? I don't get it. Renee says it's messed up. There has been so many prospects for a wide receiver, but we aren't doing anything. Yeah, because the Chiefs don't have a lot of room with the salary cap. There are $4.9 million in cap space. I told you guys, don't be surprised if the Chiefs don't trade for a wide receiver. Even Amari Cooper, who financially would have been a good fit for Kansas City, but I just don't see the Chiefs do it. Listen, you still have to have some room. The Chiefs are not in a great place with the salary cap. They're really not, because other injuries are going to happen, unfortunately. Whether they're key injuries or not, you're going to have to elevate some guys from the practice squad, and then you're going to have to sign someone off the street into your practice squad. And that's when you're spending money. So, look, I don't know if the Chiefs are trading for anybody unless they restructure Juwan Taylor's contract, which I do not expect to happen. So you're going to be stuck with the wide receivers you have. And I know that's not what people want to hear, but given the way the salary cap works and how the Chiefs are kind of in a bind with the salary cap right now, That's where they are. And I think the Chiefs, they're kind of shifting things because look at their personnel. And I'll pull it up real quickly here. The Chiefs have 5 wide receivers, 4 tight ends, 3 running backs, and a fullback. Your wide receivers are Justin Watson, Xavier Worthy, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mecole Hardman, and Sky Moore. Your tight ends are Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, Jared Wiley, and Jody Fortson. Your running backs are Kareem Hunt, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He just got reactivated into the 53-man roster for the first time this year. Samaje Perine and Carson Steele's your fullback. So those are your skill position players. You have 4 running backs, and I'm including Carson Steele, part of that position group, and 4 tight ends. When was the last time you recall the Chiefs having 4 running backs and 4 tight ends? You're going to have a lot of 13, 14 personnel on this offense, meaning there are going to be a lot of tight ends on the field and very few wide receivers, and you're going to see the Chiefs utilize their rushing attack more because that's kind of, I mean, their hand has been forced into this situation. John says the stadium situation would be convenient if you were riding with Rice. Okay, all right, John, come on. Going to build a dome for a Super Bowl bid? Listen, you have to, John. Here's the thing with the stadium. If you're going to listen, I don't care what the Chiefs do. I've said many times, I don't care if you're in Kansas or Missouri. I think people who are fighting over this are dumb. And if you're really, I don't think anyone's serious about changing their allegiance if the Chiefs move 20 minutes away. And if you are, you're crazy. With that said, I just want the Chiefs to do it right. I prefer they do a dome. And I know that changes a lot of things unless you have a retractable roof, because you're no longer going to have the flyover without a retractable roof. That's a huge part of the Arrowhead experience. But I digress. At the end of the day, if you're going to do this, if you're going to spend money, do it right. Get Super Bowls, get Final Fours, get WrestleManias, get big concerts to come to your city. They'll do it if you have a brand new indoor stadium. That's just the way it works. Allegiant Stadium is getting all of those kinds of opportunities with postseason college football games and the Super Bowl. SoFi Stadium as well. They're all getting them now. Allegiant Stadium's getting WrestleMania. SoFi has already had WrestleMania. Listen, you are in a division where once a year you visit the Chargers and the Raiders, and you just spend a whole week using the Raiders facility. So I'm sure the Chiefs have spent a lot of time learning from their division rivals. You just went and visited the Falcons Stadium, Mercedes-Benz. You visited the Vikings indoor stadium that is fairly new and recent. So I'm sure the Chiefs have been able to explore and look at some of these stadiums and learn a thing or two, and maybe learn the do's and don'ts for having an indoor stadium. So hopefully they figure all of that out and can do the right thing. That's all I care about. I don't care about the state thing. I think it's crazy. People are fighting so hard over that. It's cool that people are fighting for their allegiance, but come on. Delano says, ridiculous. We are doing absolutely nothing at wide receiver. That's what the bye week is for. Sky, Watson, and Moore can go. Did you say Sky, Watson, and Moore? Sky and Moore are the same guy, but anyway, I knew what you meant. No on MVS, we can do better. Like who? Julio Jones? What is he, like 37, 38? Michael Thomas? Andy Reid likes guys who have familiarity with the offense. That's why Kareem Hunt came back. That's why Juju came back. It's not the only reason, but those are big reasons why. So, those are things to consider there. This guy's a bozo. Then why the hell are you watching this podcast? I love the people who are like, oh, you suck. Your podcast is boring, but you're here watching. You're giving me views. You're commenting. So all you're doing is helping the podcast and the page with engagement. So please, Timothy, Timothy the genius, keep commenting, Timothy. I hope you're still around. I hope you keep commenting on this page. In fact, yeah, 30 tight end sets. You're going to see a lot of those with the Chiefs. That's just the way their personnel looks moving forward. That's kind of the way it's been. Could Hunter Renfrow fit in this offense? He could. But again, the Chiefs, they don't go and get brand new guys who, I mean, listen, what are some of the wide receiver moves you've seen the Chiefs make? They got Kadarius Toney a couple of years ago. He had no familiarity with the offense, but in more recent memory, they went and got McCole Hardman last year in a trade with the Jets, bringing him back to Kansas City because he was not being used with the Jets. They went and got Kareem Hunt and Juju Smith-Schuster because of the familiarity. That is the most important part there. I mean, they're certainly more open to. Listen, here's the thing. I like Hunter Renfrow, and I'm kind of surprised he's available. But understand this too. There's a reason why Renfrow is available, Thomas is available, Julio Jones is available. Now, you guys might say, Farzine, Juju was available too, and he's looked good so far. Yeah, he has looked good for Kansas City, and I think that's kind of a weird look for New England right now, considering the type of game Juju just had, and he might continue to be a key contributor on offense. But he's got familiarity with Kansas City. That's why he was able to have the type of game he had and could continue to play at a high level moving forward with the Chiefs. Yeah, I see a lot more no's with MVS, and I can understand why. But I would not be surprised if it happens. I would not be surprised if it happens. Yeah, Jody Fortson, yeah, I mean, he's on the team. I've always liked Jody Fortson. He's been a good red zone threat in preseason games. I still remember a couple of years ago, I think it was in 2021, Jody Fortson was like the fourth string tight end, and he had some big catches. It was like 7 or 8 catches, which is not a lot, but for a fourth string tight end, that is a lot. And he goes down with an injury. I'm like, man, this guy was kind of like a low key, really good third down guy who would get you plenty of yardage on a catch. So I was kind of bummed out to see him get hurt and then eventually leave. Now he's back in Kansas City, which I'm glad. I hope Jody Fortson can be used more often. Hey, listen, the Chiefs are using Jared Wiley, not necessarily in the pass catching department, but he's out there helping offensive tackles and other tight ends with pass blocking. So the Chiefs are not afraid to use all of their tight ends. They'll definitely do it. It would not surprise me one bit. Can they restructure anyone else's contract besides Jawan walking penalty Taylor? I mean, Joe Thuney, but I don't know if that's a reasonable thing to do because Joe Thuney is playing great coming off of his injury, mind you. I mean, I don't think that's a guy you can fairly approach and be like, yo, let's restructure. It's like, why? He's one of the best interior offensive linemen in football right now. All 3 interior offensive linemen are among the best of all interior offensive linemen. Now, Corey Humphrey just got paid. It'll kick in next year. Trey Smith's still on a rookie deal. You got to keep him around. Honestly, the only one I can really think of, Tony, is Jawan Taylor. I think the Chiefs made a big mistake signing him to that hefty contract. And I don't think Jawan Taylor is going to restructure for this year. Maybe in the offseason he would, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that deal. And I think it's holding the Chiefs back from what they want to potentially do this year. Any word on when Pacheco will be ready? Yeah, we're told 2 months. So it's going to be roughly around late November, early December. That's when you can expect them back. I appreciate you guys. Corey, Renee, everyone. Christopher said WrestleMania was just in Philadelphia at an open air stadium. Yeah, and that was really, wasn't it like 40 degrees when The Rock performed? And you know, The Rock, he's in his underwear and elbow pads. That's all he had, and boots. I could never do that. Demarcus Robinson. I don't know if the Rams are willing to do that, given their losses at wide receiver. Anthony says, I think this offensive style is complementary to the defense. The biggest issue over the past 2 years has been penalties in the red zone. The Chiefs are always there, just kicking more field goals, losing touchdowns from penalties. Now, this is actually a great point by Anthony. We actually went over this earlier this week, and Andy Reid brought this up in Monday's press conference. The Chiefs have the 4th worst red zone offense in the NFL. They're 8 of 17 in the red zone this season. Was it 8 of 17 or 8 of 19? I can't remember. But it's bad. It is bad. It's 38%. It is very low. It's the 4th worst in the NFL. The worst is New England, followed by Miami, and then Dallas, and then Kansas City. You're not in good company with that kind of category, with that kind of stat there. So if you're the Chiefs, you gotta do something. You gotta do something. And I think part of it is just don't be so creative with the play calling. Just stick to running the football, man. Do you see anyone stopping Kareem Hunt? Has Samaje Perine been shut down in key situations? Carson Steele, I know he's had a couple of fumbles, but if he can take care of the football, and I know the Chiefs trust him and they want to keep going back to him, Carson Steele hasn't really been stopped by a lot of defenses, especially in short yardage situations. So I trust that the Chiefs are going to run the football more. I think the Chiefs are going to turn into a run first team, especially in the red zone. And listen, there's always this weird dynamic sometimes in football. You see this in the NFL and college football where sometimes bad defenses do really well in the red zone. And I remember asking an assistant coach from KU about this. And he simply said, listen, when you have less of the field to defend, that can really help out, and that can really help boost the defense's confidence. A lot of times, this was told to me by another coach, a lot of times when you see a defense that struggles a lot and they are in the red zone, there'll be guys on defense, especially like the leaders. They'll say, hey, guys, look, I know it's been a tough drive, but we've got less of the field to defend. Let's finish on a strong note. That's what Kansas City's defense has been about for a very long time, whether it's been under Spags or Bob Sutton. We've seen the bend, don't break defense for a long time in Kansas City. Now, I would say the Chiefs have we still see the bend, don't break a little bit. We saw it in the Ravens game for sure. But man, in the last year and a half with Spags, this Chiefs defense has gone from bend, don't break to being a stout and a strong defense, not letting offenses bully them around. So at the end of the day, this is a Chiefs team defensively. Yeah, listen, Patrick Mahomes is not putting up big numbers. I just looked at Cody Benjamin from CBS Sports, and he ranked his top 10 quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes is not on there. And guess what? I don't think any Chiefs fan should be losing sleep over that, because at the end of the day, if you're going out there winning football games, and again, it may not be the most conventional ways of doing it, the Chiefs, they're going out there and they're finding a way to win as a team. The defense is doing a lot to put you in those situations, and the offense might be missing some points on the scoreboard, but they're still doing enough to win you games. I mean, the defense, they have not allowed more than 28 points since Super Bowl 57, not the most recent Super Bowl, the Super Bowl before that. So it's been more than a year since the team's been able to put up 28, 29, 30 points on the Chiefs. Corey says, make running the ball great again. Yeah, hell yeah, let's do it. Yeah, Christopher says, let's pump up the numbers on YouTube. I appreciate that. Yeah, I would really appreciate it if you guys did that. If you haven't done so already, I just commented with the link on Facebook and YouTube. But if you're on YouTube, you're already following through YouTube. But yeah, if you guys haven't, please subscribe to the YouTube channel if we can continue to bump those numbers up. So yeah, Christopher, I do appreciate you shouting that out there. Sometimes I forget to put that out there. But yeah, if you guys could continue to spread the word, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, that would be greatly appreciated. All right, we almost had a little collapse here in the studio. Okay. All right. We're going to get to the Chiefs and 49ers in a moment, but I want to let you know this podcast is brought to you by our good friends over at SeatGeek. SeatGeek is where I go to for all of my sports ticketing needs, also concerts as well. If you guys are concert attendees, go to SeatGeek.com, pick your tickets. If you see a green dot next to those tickets, that means you're paying a good price for those tickets. So go after those tickets. Avoid the ones with a red dot next to those ticket prices. And if you're a new customer, use my promo code FARZINE and you will save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, pick your tickets, and at checkout, enter my promo code FARZINE if you're a new SeatGeek customer, and so you'll save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. All right, let's get right into it. Chiefs, 49ers, Super Bowl 58 and 54 rematch here. Referee is Alan Eck. He's a second-year referee. His first game where he officiated a Chiefs game was last year in week 3. That was the Taylor Swift debut. I mentioned that and people got a kick out of it. I love the responses, by the way, from people who are like, oh, why are you tracking referees? We do this every year, buddy. Every week, someone has to, someone thinks I'm like drawing a conspiracy with the refs, like I'm Venmoing them. I love it. I love it. It's great. This is going to be on Fox. Hey, great news. You do not need Sunday ticket. This is going to be a nationally televised game. It's not a primetime game. It is a nationally televised broadcast for Fox. So it doesn't matter where you are across the country. I know some of you guys travel at times. This will be available on Fox everywhere. Now, keep in mind, if there's a Fox game in your area that starts at noon or 1 p.m. Eastern, depending where you are, and if that game goes long, you're going to miss a little bit of the beginning, but hey, it's just going to be a little bit. So just be patient with that. That's just the way things work, I guess, when you're out of market. But every single person will get a chance to watch the Chiefs and the 49ers and announcing the game, Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady. I know Tom Brady's been getting a lot of flack for his broadcasting. I'll be honest, I have not paid attention to a lot of his games. He's done more Cowboys games this year than any other game. So I don't watch a lot of Cowboys games because all of their games are blowout losses. Imagine that. So listen, he'll get better. Think of something you did for the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time. Think of the very first time any of you guys played sports. I would guess you guys all maybe played basketball at one point in your lives, or maybe just picked up the ball and shot hoops. None of you guys, made the basket the very, very first time, unless, your dad, your uncle, grandpa picked you up and put you right next to the rim. You guys all missed the very first time, as well as the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. Every broadcaster kind of starts off iffy in their careers, and then they get better as time goes on. So I think Tom Brady, listen, he's kind of learning the deal as he goes on, and I think he'll learn some tricks of the trade and get better as time goes on. So, I think people just need to relax on that. Broadcasting is never easy, and it's always interesting, the criticism, the way people perceive broadcasters. Oh, this guy hates my team because he said something good about the other team, or he pointed out something negative about mine. Just no, they're talking about the game. Relax. The line for this one offended some people. A lot of people are actually saying that this is big disrespect to the Chiefs. So the 49ers are 1.5 point favorites. Now, I did not realize this, but there are a lot of people who mentioned that the home team always has a 3-point, they have a 3-point leverage, which I think is silly. Why? Just because you're the home team? Man, I don't care if you're bad. You're just bad. You should never have any kind of leeway just because you're at home. But I guess that's the way the bookies in Vegas do it. So technically, it's if you go 3-point the other direction, it's the Chiefs as 1.5 point favorites. I guess that's how people are viewing it, because the 49ers automatically get the 3 points. Right? Is that not how it's viewed? Do I have that right? Anyway, the money line is very narrow here. The Chiefs are at plus 102, meaning you would have to bet $100 to win $102. You don't have to bet $100. That's just that's the kind of the simple round number a lot of people use with these kinds of things. And the 49ers are minus 122, which means you have to bet $122 to win $100. I always mention that, but people have told me, they're like, dude, we don't know what that means. So I just had to explain that there. Where was I? Oh yeah, over under 43.5 points. That's simply the total points combined by both teams. 49ers head coach, you guys all know who it is, Kyle Shanahan. Anytime you can beat a guy named Shanahan, it's always a good day in Kansas City for sure. Obviously, everyone knows his history with his dad, so I'm not going to go into that too much. He's an 8th-year head coach with the 49ers. Former Chargers head coach Brandon Staley also on the staff. I did not realize that. By the way. And by the way, one other note too. A lot of people are making a big deal about this. The 49ers have not beat the Chiefs in 10 years. Patrick Mahomes is 4-0 all-time against the 49ers. The last time the 49ers beat the Chiefs, who were the starting quarterbacks for each team? For the Chiefs, it was Alex Smith. For the 49ers, it was Colin Kaepernick. So it's always interesting how that kind of thing works. But yeah, that is that's the thing. And by the way, as far as the betting line goes, Mahomes, his stat line, his win-loss record rather, is pretty damn good. While the betting underdog, a lot of people put this out there, he's 11-1-1 just with the betting line, and then 10-3 straight up as an underdog, as a betting underdog. That is pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive. Offensive coordinator for the 49ers is Chris Forster. He's actually not the offensive coordinator. That's just his unofficial title. His official title is run game coordinator and offensive line coach, but he's tabbed as the main offensive assistant for the 49ers. 49ers are pretty good numbers wise, second in total offense, second in passing, third in rushing, and they're tied 8th with Green Bay in points per game at exactly 27 points per game. Quarterback Brock Purdy having another good season, over 1,600 yards, second most in the NFL, 9 touchdown passes. That is tied for 8th in the NFL. 4 picks on the season. Doesn't throw a lot of picks, more than he had at this point last year, but still very low. Sacked 12 times this season, doesn't get sacked a whole lot. And then running back Jordan Mason, he's been doing a really good job filling in for Christian McCaffrey this season here. Even though Christian McCaffrey has been unavailable this whole season, cover boy on Madden, Mason's been great. 609 yards. That's the second most in the NFL. Obviously, Derrick Henry's number 1. There's a big gap between Derrick Henry and Jordan Mason, and then there's a big gap between Jordan Mason and the Panthers running back. And I apologize, I don't have the Panthers running back in front of me. It's kind of a surprise. They're number 3, but that's just the way it works. But yeah, Jordan Mason, second in the league in rushing yards, 3 touchdowns on the year. He has had 7 runs of 20 yards or more this season. That's the second most, again, behind Derrick Henry. He's also got 27 first down runs. That's the 5th most in the NFL. So he's been pretty good. He did suffer a shoulder injury against Seattle on Thursday Night Football. He only came back for one handoff, didn't play the rest of the game. He actually had 9 carries for 73 yards before his injury. He was averaging 8.1 yards per carry. That is the best he's had in any game this year. He's rushed for 73 yards in every single game this season. So he's been it's no wonder why he's second in the NFL in rushing yards. However, the Chiefs, they've held running backs to 3.06 yards per carry, and they're not playing no pushover running backs. They've gone up against Derrick Henry. They went up against J.K. Dobbins, who was 3rd in rushing yards at the time, and J.K. Dobbins had the best yard per carry average in the NFL getting ready for Kansas City, and the Chiefs shut him down. The Chiefs also played Alvin Kamara, who was in the top 5 in rushing yards before facing Kansas City, and the Chiefs shut him down also. So the Chiefs have done a really good job shutting down running backs this season. No running back has been able to run all over Kansas City this season. So I would expect the same thing against Jordan Mason. By the way, I did mention there is a secret recipe for the Chiefs to win this game, and I'll get to that shortly. Tight end George Kittle, one of the better tight ends. No surprise here. 284 yards, 4th most by tight ends. He's got 5 touchdowns on the season. That's the most by a tight end this year. And that also co-leads the NFL in touchdown catches this season. When you look at their wide receiver group, they've got a solid group as usual. Juwan Jennings, 404 yards. That's 10th most in the NFL. Brandon Ayuk, he's got 351 yards, 22nd in the league. And Deebo Samuel has 335 yards. That's the 26th most in the NFL. Jennings has 3 touchdowns on the year. Ayuk does not have any, and Deebo Samuel has just 1 on the season. So these are guys who've been doing a really good job of getting the football, and a majority of the touchdowns have gone to George Kittle for the 49ers this season. Juwan Jennings also carrying that load as well. So it's been a really good season for the 49ers on offense. When you look at their offensive line, Trent Williams, a beast. I don't need to get into that. You guys all know about Trent Williams, easily the best offensive tackle in the NFL today. They also have Dominic Puny, who might be the best rookie offensive lineman in the NFL alongside Joe Alt, the rookie from KU. So, yeah, Rock Chalk, definitely happy to see that there. Playing great at right guard. Colton McKivitz, he's been solid, but he's also been problematic at times, allowing 17 pressures, the most on the team. He's also committed 4 penalties. Jake Brendel, the center, he's also committed 4 penalties, and he's been easy for interior defensive linemen to beat. Chris Jones doesn't get a lot of flashy stats, but he gets a lot of pressures on quarterbacks this year. I mean, listen, even though in all of the playoff games you've seen with Chris Jones, he's only had a sack in 1 game. And that was against Joe Burrow, where he had 2 in the AFC Championship game. But when you look at this, the interior offensive line, specifically at the center position, Chris Jones is probably going to get the best of Jake Brendel in this game. But don't be surprised if he doesn't get a sack, because he just hasn't really been able to get that big sack total like he wanted to in the offseason. I think he mentioned 20 sacks is what he really, really wanted. But that just hasn't really been a reality for him. I think he only has 2 sacks, 3 maybe on the season. So, but at the end of the day, I think he's like 5th in the NFL in total pressures. And that's where Chris Jones makes his money right there. Going after the quarterback, pressuring them, and making them get rid of the football. That is what Chris Jones does. That is why he gets paid the big bucks. That is why he's the highest paid defensive tackle in NFL history. So that's going to be the big key once again for the Chiefs. No surprise there. 49ers defensive coordinator is Nick Sorensen. No relation to Dan Sorensen. I looked that up, thought that was a possibility. Did some digging and researching. Actually, it's funny. If you type is Nick Sorensen on Google, the first suggestion is Nick Sorensen related to Daniel Sorensen? Which is what I was going to Google. It's always nice when Google knows what you're going to look for. But Nick Sorensen, he is a first-year defensive coordinator. He's been a former special teams coordinator with Jacksonville. He's also been a special teams and a defensive assistant with Seattle. Joined San Francisco in 2022. Focused more on defense and quickly built his way up the ladder on the defensive side in the coaching realm. He started coaching in 2013, starting with the Seahawks. And here he is now, first year as a defensive coordinator. And you guys all know the main guy on that defense is Fred Warner. Before we get into that, 11th in total defense, 17th against the pass, 7th against the run. So it's going to be interesting to see Kareem Hunt in this game. And I'll get to Kareem Hunt shortly because this is going to be very interesting to see this matchup here. And they're 12th in points per game allowed this season. Fred Warner, he's got 50 tackles on the year, 15th most. You guys all remember him. He had that weird freak accident injury running from the sidelines where he just pulled a muscle and had to leave the game, which was unfortunate. But the Chiefs took advantage of that when that happened, and their offense started to click. He has 5 pass deflections, 2 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles, and had a forced fumble in the last game they played Thursday night. Not this past Thursday, but the Thursday before against Seattle. So Fred Warner, 4 forced fumbles. That's the most in the NFL this season. And you look at Kareem Hunt. That's a guy who does not fumble very often. So I'm very curious how Kareem Hunt tries to prepare against Fred Warner. Kareem Hunt's fumbled before, but not much in the NFL. Not much. You also have Devondre Campbell. He's also a big part of that linebacking corp with 34 tackles on the year. Kevin Givens, defensive tackle, leads the team with 3.5 sacks. He had 2.5 against the Patriots. Nick Bosa, their best defensive player right there, 3 sacks, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. He had 2 against Minnesota in week 2, and he also had a pick against Arizona a couple of weeks ago. He's got 6 tackles for a loss, so obviously a very good season once again for Nick Bosa. Sam Okayanu, I think is how you say it. I'm sure I butchered that. He's got 3 tackles for a loss and 3 pass deflections. Malik Collins, Javon Hargrave, a couple other good defensive tackles. They got Leonard Floyd, also a part of that defensive line as well. Another guy who comes in on that defensive line, kind of similar to what the Chiefs do with their defensive backs sometimes, is Jair Brown. He's got 3 tackles for a loss. When you look at their secondary, that is a big weakness of theirs right there. Charvarius Ward, you don't know if he's going to play, because he's been dealing with some injuries. And I forgot to mention, I think I mentioned Jordan Mason. He was limited in practice with his injury. I forgot to let me pull up the injury report, because that definitely would help out a lot. Yeah, so he suffered, what was it? I think it was a shoulder injury, right? For Jordan Mason. Yeah, it was a shoulder injury. So he was limited in practice Wednesday. And then we'll get to other injuries. Charvarius Ward, he did practice. He was a full participant. He's been dealing with a knee injury. I don't think he played last game. So very curious to see if Charvarius Ward plays. I know he's been good for them. Isaac Yiadom, Renardo Green, who's got a pick on the year. Malik Mustafa. Their secondary doesn't really screen any kind of threat whatsoever. Secondary is a major weakness. Rocky Ya-Sin, who's been around the league for a while now, this is not a very good secondary. This is probably the biggest weakness for San Francisco. So I'm very curious if this is a game where Xavier Worthy has a coming out party and shines on offense, torching the secondary. I kind of wonder, is Juju Smith-Schuster going to do anything? Mecole Hardman, we haven't seen much of him on offense this year. I'm curious to see if he gets more involved and can get a couple of catches deep down the field. Justin Watson, who's got some speed as well. So I'm curious to see what those four guys do. I know they'll get Sky Moore involved a little bit as well. So I'm excited to see what the Chiefs are going to do against this weak secondary that that the 49ers have. Very curious to see. You guys ready for that secret recipe I mentioned? It's going to come on special teams. You guys were not expecting that. Special teams coordinator Brian Schneider. Let's go over him real quickly. Former defensive coordinator with Seattle. Former special teams coordinator. I said defense coordinator with Seattle, the Raiders, USC, Iowa State, UCLA, and Colorado State, his alma mater. That's where he started his coaching. He'd been coaching since the mid-90s, and he did win a Super Bowl with the Seahawks when they had that blowout win over the Broncos. Their kicker, Jake Moody, he did break the record for longest field goal in Super Bowl history, which was later broken in the same game by Harrison Butker. Moody's been good this year, 13 of 14 field goals, but he did not play in the last game due to a right ankle injury. That's obviously not good for a kicker. So who do they get? Former Chiefs backup kicker, Matthew Wright. Remember Matthew Wright and Matt Amendola? They filled in for Harrison Butker a couple of years ago. Wright was kind of inconsistent. They bring in Amendola. He was inconsistent also. Now Matthew Wright is with the 49ers, and he suffered an injury at the end of the game tackling a player, tackling a kick returner. And in the process, he hurt his shoulder and his back. He did not practice. So both kickers for the 49ers, Jake Moody and Matthew Wright, did not practice today. Boy, that's interesting. That is very interesting indeed. Their punter, Mitch Wishnowsky, not a good punter. He's averaging 45.7 yards per punt. That's tied for sixth fewest in the NFL. His net average is also 35.9. That is the worst in the NFL. So that could really help Kansas City, right? Yeah, but there's something else. When it comes to kickoff returns, this is kind of interesting. The 49ers have 7 total kickoff returns this season. Deebo Samuel, Isaac Gernendo, Patrick Taylor Jr., they've all returned kickoffs for the 49ers this season. The Chiefs also have 7 kickoff returns this season. Seattle, on Thursday Night Football against the 49ers, they had 7 kickoff returns in just one game against the 49ers. For 266 yards. That includes a 97-yard kick return touchdown by wide receiver Laviska Shenault Jr. Shenault Jr. had 4 returns for 189 yards. So obviously a very good day for him, even without the kick return touchdown. Their other kick returner, cornerbacks D. Williams, he had 3 for 77 yards, which is pretty good. So when you look at Seattle, I'll repeat it again, 7 kickoff returns, which is the same amount as the Chiefs all season. They did it in one game. Seattle had 266 yards off kick returns alone. The 49ers have given up the 5th most kick return yards this year with 439. Obviously, a big chunk of that came in the Thursday Night Football game. That tells me Dave Toub, who might be the best special teams coordinator in the NFL, he has to devise or orchestrate some kind of plan to get something going with the Chiefs. You have to. You absolutely have to in this game. I'm going to go ahead and I'll do this on my DraftKings bet. I'm picking the Chiefs to get a kick return touchdown in this game or some sort of special teams touchdown. Now, when you bet on that, you can put defense and special teams together because that's how it goes. You can't do it separately. So I am going to put on my same game parlay this year that this game, that the Chiefs will get a kick return touchdown. Yeah, Mecole Hardman, he's been a part of that kick return unit. Xavier Worthy could be a guy who gets involved as well. I know Carson Steele get some of the kick returns as well. But I don't know with his speed if he'll be able to pull one off. But if there was ever a time, it would definitely be in this game here. So I'm picking the Chiefs to get a special teams touchdown. If you guys want to bet on that, hey, go ahead. I feel pretty confident in that happening in this game. My final score in this one, I've gone back and forth. I'll be honest. I've gone back and forth in this one. Both teams have been dealing with injuries, but I just feel like the Chiefs are the much better football team. I really do. I think they're going to stop Jordan Mason, even though he's having a great season. The Chiefs' run defense has been greater. And then, they've been able to keep other opposing offenses in check. I just think that the Chiefs, with their offense, they ever since the first quarter of that Chargers game, I feel like the Chiefs' offense has played better. They've been more in sync. They've been more in rhythm. They're not lining up the scoreboard, but they're finding ways to move the football. They're just not finishing in the red zone. And if they can do that, and I trust they will, play calling will certainly help that. Running will certainly help that. They're going to score more points, and they're going to win big. By the way, for those of you who are here, go ahead and get your score predictions in here. I'm going 27-24 Kansas City. Is FAU getting more snaps? Possibly, because we did learn today that Mike Dana was the only Chief who did not practice today. So if he's not going to play, FAU might play. FAU's quietly been having a good season when he gets an opportunity this year. He's been getting involved in some games, and he forced a fumble against Kirk Cousins. He had a pressure, if I'm not mistaken, in that I think it was a Chargers game. Yeah, it was a Chargers game, not the Saints game, because I think Mike Dana did play in the Saints game. But yeah, Amenaho, yeah, he's missed out against his former team, both games against the former team. Yeah, I think he'll be back soon. I know he's been tweeting, he's been showing some excitement about coming back. So yeah, Elena, you get it. My predictions, you don't go against them. If you guys saw my 3 keys for the last game against the Saints going into that game, oh boy, did that one age very, very well. Every key, which I do before every single game, they all hit. All of them hit. Let me see your score predictions. Mickey says can't have any turnover. Certainly agree with that. 34-24 from William. Corey says 27-17, 24-20. 34-24 from William. Robert said 24-20. Okay. All right. So I see you guys. Yeah, a couple of you guys thinking the Chiefs are going to go in the 30s here. Yeah, listen, the Chiefs haven't scored 30 points yet this season. I thought they would have done that against Cincinnati and their terrible defense. Kind of disappointing they didn't get to do that in that game, but they still found a way to win, which is all that matters. I think it's going to be another close game here, and I think it's going to be similar to a lot of the scores you've seen in a lot of games so far this year. So I'm going to go ahead and say 27-24 Kansas City. That is my prediction. Charlie says 28-20. Okay. So I think we're all close in agreement here. Anthony says 27-20. Okay. A lot of you guys kind of saying Chiefs in the high 20s or early 30s here. Holly's going 19-17 and a little bit of lower scoring affair here. Yeah, I agree with you, Corey, for sure. But I do trust the Chiefs will figure that out. I think play calling is the big part of it. I think play calling has honestly been 90% of the issue there. Andy Reid did say in the press conference on Monday, he says we got to stop beating ourselves in the red zone. He's right. And I think he's talking to himself, honestly, when he says that. The play calling is a big part of that. And I think if they go out there and fix the play calling, if they can stop being too creative, they'll get it. You know what bothers me is we see a lot of the reverse handoff with Xavier Worthy. Dude, teams watch film. They're going to pick up on that. And it almost ended in a disaster when Travis Kelce missed a block on, I can't remember who the defender was, but Carson Steele ended up fumbling because he was trying to toss it to Worthy. But because Kelce missed a block, it turned into a fumble. Thankfully, Worthy jumped on top of it to not let it turn into a turnover. Sean says 27-24 with San Francisco getting a garbage touchdown at the end. Okay. You know what's funny? I remember in 2010 when Alex Smith was with the 49ers, the Chiefs and 49ers played, and the Chiefs won that one. It was like 27-3 or 24-3, something like that. And it was the end of the game. And Alex Smith and the 49ers offense, they were going. They still wanted to get a touchdown, even though the game was over. Smith hits his wide receiver in the end zone. I can't remember who it was. And the guy got injured on that final play. It's like, dude, what was the point of that? What was, I think it was Jim Harbaugh coaching at the time. Like, what was Harbaugh's point? It was either Harbaugh or what's the dude who always wore ties on the sideline? Singletary. Like, what were you trying to do? That was a little weird. And your player got hurt in the process, but that was interesting. So, yeah, that is my prediction. I'm going 27-24 Kansas City. I just had to bring that up because it was just funny because you mentioned garbage touchdown with San Francisco. So it reminded me of that. All right, guys. Hey, appreciate all of you guys downloading and listening to this episode of the podcast. For those of you who listen to the archive version, for those who listen live and watch live on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, big thank you to all of you guys. Appreciate all of you guys who joined live here. I'm Farzin Vousoughian. Subscribe to the podcast. Invite your friends to the social media pages. Hey, we're everywhere now. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all those places, Threads. So please, if you guys are on any of those social media sites, make sure you're following me on all of them. On YouTube, it's the Chief Zone. Everywhere else, it's just my name. So just, I know you guys can't remember how to spell it, but you guys can copy and paste. I know you guys know how. So if you guys haven't, make sure you guys do that and follow me on all of the other social media websites. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Appreciate you guys. I'll talk to you for the Red Friday live chat. Reminder for the Red Friday live chat, it will be earlier both this Friday and next Friday due to a scheduling conflict. It'll be 11 a.m. for both of the next two Red Fridays. So just a reminder then. All right, guys, appreciate it. I'll talk to you all then. Take care.